Please have a seat, and I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Apex Town Council. This is the regularly scheduled meeting for Tuesday, March 19th. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight, and if you would, please join me in a moment of silence as we thank those who have sacrificed for us, for those who work on our behalf regularly, and thank those from whom all our blessings come. Thank you. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. A couple of things to pull up. And as a reminder, one is if you intend to speak during public forum, there is a blue sheet up here that you need to put your name on and do so quickly. We will be using that during that time. Also, if you intend to speak during any one of the public hearings tonight, please come put your name on the appropriately numbered sheet. Those are the yellow ones there. And lastly, if you intend to speak tonight at one of those items, you need to be familiar with the public speaking guidelines on the yellow sheet that was out on the podium. Hopefully you got a copy of that. If not, feel free to go get one now so that you may be informed as to the policies and public speaking in our meeting tonight. Also, I'd like to point out, just for matter of interest, we have a couple of late-minute substitutions. Our town clerk is not here, so Karen Cox, sorry, Alaska Brain, Brain Freeze, Alaska Brain, nice. Is subbing in tonight. We'd like to thank her for doing that. Also, we have Amanda subbing in for our planning department tonight, as Diane, I understand, is not able to be here. So our thoughts are with her as she is dealing with that. With that, I'd like to now move to the time of presentations. Our first presentation is the Arbor Day Declaration, and let's see, do I have that, Mr. Town Manager? There we go, thank you. All right, so this was declaring Arbor Day, and I apologize if I push any buttons while I'm holding this.
You're fine.
I may delete something important, I don't know. But we've got IT here.
Absolutely.
So. The proclamation, Arbor Day in Town of Apex 2019. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees, whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, whereas trees can reduce the erosion of precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperatures, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees in our town increase the property values, enhance economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas the Apex Town Council, the Tree Citizen Advisory Panel, also known as the Tree CAP, and the Apex Garden Club will commemorate Arbor Day by planting 4 trees, one for each year designated as a Tree City USA, at Hunter Street Dog Park, on March 22nd, 2019. That's coming up, so you haven't missed it. And 100th Street Dog Park's right across the street there. Now, therefore, I, Lance Olive, Mayor of the Town of Apex, do proclaim March 22nd, 2019 as Arbor Day in the Town of Apex, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts protecting our trees and woodlands. And I will sign this and take care of this with the town staff later on this week. And I'm sure we will make sure that the time and date and all that is posted on the website.
Has been.
All right, and it is. Okay, very good. Thank you. We now move to consent agenda. These items are considered to be routine, typically enacted by a single motion. However, if any council member wishes to pull a consent item to discuss later on in the evening, they certainly can do so. I've not been informed of any, so let me just ask if there is a motion.
Make motion.
All right. All right, I'll get a motion and a second to approve the consent. Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, consent passes unanimously. We now move to the setting of the regular agenda for tonight. There are a couple of modifications. The first one I'd like to make, and this is sort of in order, public hearings 3 and 4, the developer has requested for that item to be continued for 2 weeks. This is not the official, but I'd like for us to hear that ahead of public hearing number 1 so that we can take the vote on that this evening. As a reminder, developers, we typically give them one request without really any strong consideration. So this being the first, I hope the council will support that. We certainly can ask him whatever questions we want to when we get to that item. Next, I know that new business number 1, which is from staff, is being pulled for tonight. Correct, Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so new business number 1 will not be heard tonight. And lastly, we have 2 closed session items that I'd like to put on the last page, and I'll read the specifics of those later on tonight, but the general gist is one is a negotiating position with respect to property, and the other is regarding attorney-client conversations regarding legal matter. And we'll get into the details when we go to closed session. With those, are there any other changes to the agenda that anyone is aware of or would like to make? Is there a motion? All right, we got a motion and a second to approve that with those modifications. Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, the agenda is set for this evening with those changes as we discussed. We now move into time of public forum. This is an opportunity for you, the members and citizens of Apex, to come speak to us. As usual, and as I said, there's a yellow sheet that has the guidelines. I will be calling the names in the order that they've signed up, and we have 3 people who have signed up tonight, so we will begin. Cheryl Stallings, Barbara Collins, and Michelle Gardner, in that order. Cheryl, as you come up, I'll just remind you that we have the green, yellow, red light system, and our town clerk substitution is going to be managing that light for you. Please state your name and address and then proceed.
Thank you. My name is Cheryl Stallings, and I live at 2009 Abbey Knoll Drive. I have lived in Apex in the Haddon Hall subdivision for almost 22 years, and I would just like to share some comments to you about my life experiences in Apex. First of all, my husband and I chose to raise our son here. He very much enjoyed his time at Balcom Elementary, Salem Middle, and Apex High Schools. We have enjoyed in supporting our son and our area schools in various academic and athletic programs and events, including activities through the Apex Parks and Recreation Program. Additionally, I appreciate a number of forward-thinking initiatives that this council has approved, such as continued advances with solar and renewable energy, our Apex Bike Plan, measures aimed at increased walkability and connectivity, the development of Pleasant Park, and the recent resolution honoring and celebrating Black History Month. And I also hope you will support the resolution tonight recognizing March as Women's History Month. Even though we have much to celebrate, I am very concerned about the rapid growth in our area, and I am here to ask if our growth can be managed differently or possibly slower. As a longtime resident of Haddon Hall, I am feeling a bit suffocated by construction projects and traffic congestion that surround our neighborhoods, such as on Highway 55, on the Apex Peakway, and on Salem Street. And of course, there are other parts of Apex being developed as well. My neighborhood now sees a significant increase of cut-through traffic associated with Peak Charter Academy. And at the other end of our subdivision, at the Haddon Place entrance, our neighbors endure much traffic congestion in the mornings as they try to turn left on Salem Street as we merge with commuter traffic associated with Thales Academy. And then we also have an unknown traffic variable with the new car dealership that's being built on Salem. So while we have just announced the proclamation for Arbor Day and the recognition of the importance of trees, we have also seen beautiful trees stripped away and replaced with orange construction cones, barriers, and fencing. I realize that construction projects contribute to our economy and provide jobs. However, these projects also impact our traffic flow, roads, school capacity, storm runoff, and ultimately our quality of life. So in closing, I'm asking you to remember that you were elected by the people of Apex to be good stewards and ambassadors for our town. As you make decisions tonight and moving forward, I ask you to make the citizens of Apex and the quality of life here a top priority. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Stallings. Barbara Collins.
Hello, Barbara Collins. I live at 901 Norwood Lane, and I'm an Apex resident for 22 years. Some of you are already familiar with me, so I'm glad to be back. I think you know that one of the most important things for me is that those of us who care and have a voice come and participate in our government and share our thoughts on our community. I would like to say to my neighbor, here, I agree with everything she said and will not say again the points that she made. But I would like to emphasize quality of life. So I've been reading blog posts from council members and messages on Facebook and things on Nextdoor that some of our council members have posted. And they look a lot like this. 27% of the total site, 20 acres with this, multiple home sizes, 40-foot buffers, 6-foot paved roads, which is all very interesting, but does not speak at all to quality of life. So there's nothing in these documents or in these papers or in our Unified Development Ordinance or whatever it's called that speaks to what does it mean to our community to have more development. What does it mean for the happiness of the people who are already living here that we are not managing growth in a way that encourages people like me to come to meetings and say, this is not what I want, this is not what I hear my neighbors saying, and a set of rules will not actually get us to a place where the quality of life in Apex can be what it has been for me over the past 22 years. So again, I'll echo what my neighbor said and say I agree, and I strongly encourage you to consider quality of life, and that I would hope that as you're referencing what's allowed in Apex, that you're also imagining what we should do and not just what's allowed. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Collins. And Michelle Gardner, did I read that right?
You did. My apologies. I was told I only meant to sign the yellow piece.
Oh, okay. Did you sign the wrong one? Which
Yes.
public hearing did you want to speak at?
Olive Ridge and.
It's not, okay, it won't be heard tonight, so most likely we'll put that off for 2 weeks.
Okay.
All right?
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, yes, ma'am. All right, so that being the last one, I'll close the public hearing, our public forums, and we will now move into public hearings. Before we hear public hearing number 1, as we discussed in our agenda tonight, the applicant for public hearings 3 and 4 has requested a 2-week, correct, Mr. Barron? 2-week extension for this item. As we typically will do, we grant any request one time for a developer, so we would like to ask the council for a motion to defer this until, what is the April meeting? April 2nd? Okay, until April 2nd. Continue the meeting until April 2nd. Is there a motion?
The hearing, right? The hearing, not the meeting.
Sorry, the public hearing?
Yeah.
And, the public hearing for that item, both for annexation and for rezoning.
I'll make a motion.
All right. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, those items are continued until April the 2nd. And I will pull that out so I don't. Let's see, so Mr. Mahaffey, Ms. Gavins, and Mr. Wynn, I presume, that will be April 2nd. Make sure everybody has ability to come back for that. If you have questions, I'm sure if you reach out to Mr. Barron, he'd be more than happy to address them. We now move to public hearing number 1. This is for rezoning application 19CZ for the Summit Church, and Shelley Mayo is presenting.
I'll let everyone get out of the building. The first project is 19 CZ01. It's for the Summit Church that's located approximately here in Apex. It's kind of on the easternmost border at the intersection, or just south of US 1, Lufkin Road, and very near to where 1010 intersects with Lufkin. This is the location of the existing Summit Church. Currently, the parcel has split zoning with LI to the west and planned commercial conditional use to the east. The applicant is proposing to rezone the parcel to one rezoning district, which is neighborhood business conditional zoning. This is compliant with the 2045 land use map, which shows this area as commercial services. The parcel is about 8.31 acres. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on December 20th, 2018. That meeting report is attached to the staff report. The site is the current location of Summit Church, and the church is still intended to remain the primary use at this location. The intent of this application is just to add additional uses to the site. As many of you are probably aware, larger churches frequently rent out portions of their facilities during the week for a variety of different types of uses, and this is just to give Summit Church the opportunity to use some of these additional uses as a way to bring in additional funding for the church. Summit Church is also not the property owner of the actual parcel. They have a long-term land lease, and this also gives the underlying property owner the potential that if Summit were to leave, there are no plans for Summit to leave. I have to make that clear. But if Summit were to find a better location sometime down the line, this would give the underlying property owner some additional options as well. That being said, there are 55 proposed uses on here. I am not going to read all of them to you. I'm going to read a couple of them for you so that you get a general idea of them. Of course, church or place of worship, daycare facility, school, public or private, vocational school, youth or day camps, medical or dental office or clinic, convenience store with gas sales, grocery general, and repair services limited. The applicant has also agreed to 5 architectural conditions. These conditions are simply so that if someone wanted to come in and renovate the building, we can make sure that we have some architectural conditions to make sure that it's not going to end up being something really strange. These conditions comply with the existing building out there, so they will not render the existing building out of compliance. It's just to make sure that we get something out of that. The current zoning conditions out there do not actually have any architectural conditions, so this is something that the applicant was willing to offer up for us to help us kind of maintain the character of Apex the way we've been used to. Planning staff recommends approval of the rezoning petition as proposed, and Planning Board heard this on their March 11th meeting and unanimously recommended approval. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and the applicant is here as well.
I have a question. So out of all these uses, do any of them allow car sales?
No.
So retail sales does not?
The only 2 uses that allow car sales would be vehicle sales and rental light or vehicle sales and rental heavy. And vehicle sales and rental light is what you would normally see for just a standard car lot. Retail sales general is going to be more like a glass sales shop or a lighting shop or a shoe shop, which, I'd be okay with. And, things of those natures. Car sales would not be included in that at all.
Is this set of uses typical of B1? Are there any that are not part of B1 that are extra, or the other way around where they've taken away some from B1?
Some were taken out of B1. I don't have that list in front of me at the moment. If I remember correctly, we asked for broadcasting station to be removed just because those tend to have very large antennas that we don't really want people seeing from US 1. And there were a couple of others that were similar. They were removed because they tend to be a little more unsightly in that area. But these are all allowed by the UDO in the B1 zoning district.
And I guess that maybe answers the next question I have, but, so if a place came in with a plan to have a church and a school at the same time, originally, would it fit just the same as it would have, before, or is it, I feel like I've heard this a couple times now, and is it a back-end way of getting the school, or was it something that would have been allowed the whole time, and it's just an extra use now?
And the UDO requires that for a church and a school to coexist, and this is also true for a church and a daycare, that a special use permit has to be approved. So if a school were to apply for this location, then not only would the rezoning that's before you be required, because school is not currently permitted in either planned commercial or light industrial, but they would also have to submit a special use permit, and that would come before council as a quasi-judicial public hearing. So the council would have not one but two options to review that and approve or deny.
And that's what we're doing here effectively as well.
I can't speak to that because I can't speak to any specifics of any special use permits that may or may not be coming forward to you. That counts as speaking about a quasi-judicial public hearing before we're actually in the hearing.
And then I have another question as well. Is there a reason why microdistillery, distillery, and brewery are not in here?
Microbrewery is in here. Microdistillery, distillery, and brewery were not requested by the applicant. And it looks like Amanda is double checking the UDO for me because she's great that way.
While she's doing that, if you want to let Councilman Jensen.
I had
Yes,
a
sir.
quick question. If they
All
came
right.
back for a school or a daycare on the special permit, we would be able to limit the number of students or children. Is that correct?
If the applicant agreed to do so during the quasi-judicial hearing, yes. You could,
We cannot dictate that?
you cannot dictate that. You can, however, deny. You can't require, my understanding, and Lori can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is a quasi-judicial public hearing, you cannot dictate a condition. You can, however, vote to deny it if the applicant doesn't agree. Is that incorrect? A possible future quasi-judicial. He was asking if a school or a daycare were to come in with a special use permit, could council require that they cap the number of students?
You can have conditions that will enable the application to meet the ordinance. So if there's a condition that brings it up to meeting one of the standards in the ordinance, then that would be the type of condition that could be imposed.
Okay. I think the answer that I heard was that we could not, for something like that, that would be a limitation as opposed to meeting a standard of the
Yeah,
UDO.
I agree.
So
If,
we would
for
not be able to,
example,
we would not,
If I may, I think so. One way to accomplish what Lori's saying and also get to what Mr. Jensen was saying is if it were shown that the sewer system did not have enough capacity to handle X number of children at a particular area, then in order to allow the site to meet the capacity that's available for them and hence provide a UDO requirement, then it could be, a condition could be imposed that said that X number of children would be permitted in order to provide the correct,
for the purpose of meeting UDO requirements.
exactly. It would have to be caged in such a way is what it sounds like Lori was saying.
All right, and I'll get to you in a second, before we do, Amanda was pending a response.
Yes, so the distillery and brewery uses are not permitted in the neighborhood business district. Those are much more intense, large manufacturing operations, so that's why those uses were not included. Micro distillery is also not permitted in the B1 zoning district because it is a more intense use than a microbrewery.
Thank you.
And that's the way, that's our general classifications regardless of the parcel.
Correct.
That's how we
Right, regardless,
consider the
this-
uses, right?
Right, those uses would not be permitted in the B1 zoning district regardless of
Right.
location.
Okay. Did that answer your question? All right.
No, I was just assuming that she was ready. That's
Oh, okay. All right, good. Okay, any other questions for staff?
Just to continue on with the limitation situation, I'm concerned with what's happened with Thales Academy down here in terms of cars and congestion. If they did a school because, or a daycare, because there's a flow of traffic that comes in, especially for a school, because they usually set the times. Would we have the ability to limit it because of traffic congestion problems?
My understanding is that would depend on what a TIA would show and whether or not they crossed the thresholds for a TIA. Most schools would cross those thresholds in my experience, but Russell is really the expert on that. All of these are concerns that, short of denying that particular use on this rezoning case, would be more appropriately addressed at a special use permit hearing if it came forward. If you are considering asking that that particular use be dropped off of this rezoning, I can give you some basic answers, but I can't delve into details for you.
I
Russell?
can't see dropping it off, but I guess we'll just have to see what happens when we get to the.
So I think if I could, for the context of this item, I think if we could make a general statement that says to staff that we do have general concerns about situations where cars back up into the street during normal Monday through Friday rush hour, both on the front end and the back end, that those be recognized as general concerns if and when any conditional zoning items come forward. Maybe staff can help alleviate those during the pre-quasi-judicial process.
I can assure you that staff always looks at traffic quite intently when it comes to any school that that's proposed in town, because we drive the exact same routes that you do to and from work every day, so we definitely recognize the traffic concerns that they impose.
All right. I think that's the best way to proceed with that.
And, well, I guess, are there equations in the UDO about number of kids in daycare or school versus the size or the driveway length or whatever?
We rely on equations that are in, so there's triggers for what will trigger a TIA, and those are in the UDO. And then we also rely on specific numbers in order to generate things that are in other reference documents. I don't require remember the names of those, and Russell is coming to save me right now. So,
yeah, typically we rely on the ITE trip generation manual. If it happens to be a school, we would rely on what's called an MSTA, municipal school. I forgot what the acronym stands for, but it's an NCDOT calculator that's actually designed for the state of North Carolina that looks at differences between public and private schools. It has number of staff, number of students. So it's actually the guideline for generating traffic and actually calculates carpool required length. So we look at that as part of the school analysis.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Councilman? Okay. Anything else for staff? All right. Thanks, Shelley. And let's see, this is a rezoning request. Is there an applicant that wishes to speak before I go to the public hearing? Okay, come on up. So as a matter of course, I'll ask the applicant, and if the applicant wishes, they can have up to 9 minutes to present their case. And I guess, did you sign in here?
Yes,
Are you David
I did.
Arnold?
Yeah. So
Okay, all right,
probably
very
the only
good.
one.
That'll make public hearing easy. All right, so 9 minutes for the applicant, but I think we're good to go, Mr. Arnold.
Okay, yep. So my name's David Arnold, representing the applicant. I don't think there's a lot I'm allowed to say. So if you do have any questions, I'll do my best and lean on staff to find out what answers I can give tonight.
All right, thank you. So I'll help you out here. So just as a reminder to staff, this isn't a quasi-judicial public hearing for something future. This is simply the conditional zoning for this type. with the listed uses. So please contain your thoughts around or within that. With that said, are there questions for the applicant?
I have one. I'm curious, help me out if I can ask this, the history, how Heritage Leadership Academy got started. Is that okay?
Is Heritage Leadership Academy part of this application by name?
They are the applicant on the application. So yes.
Okay. I think it's okay. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I think it's okay to answer the question.
Yeah, I'm just curious how it got started.
The school was started by a mom who homeschooled her kids, and the school is a university model school, so kids go to school 2 days a week in the classroom setting, and they're at home. This is under 6th grade. They're at home the other 3 days a week. Once they hit 6th grade, they're into the classroom 3 days a week and at home 2 days a week. So it started with one mom and a group of friends that were interested in it. It grew really big, really quickly. So they're currently meeting at Hope, and then they've also has a campus in Durham now. They all have accredited teachers and whatnot there. So started small and grew really fast.
All right, thank you. So, I don't mean to cut that short, but I want to make sure that we contain our conversation around the rezoning and the uses. Anything else for the applicant? You had a couple of questions, so I want to make sure that you were good to go. All right. All right. Thank you. And with that, I'll open the public hearing. Mr. Arnold has spoken. No one else has signed up, so I'll close the public hearing. Refer the matter back to council for a possible motion.
Can I ask another question of staff?
Sure.
Okay. So we don't normally get rezonings for properties that are already existing. So any kind of improvements that have to be made with the different uses, it doesn't matter if it's an existing facility or a brand new build, right?
Mm-hmm.
They still have to put the improvements in.
Correct.
If they're warranted.
Correct, with a little bit of wiggle room there. If a TIA requires that improvements have to be made to the site or to the roads or anything, those will have to be put in. If, for example, and this isn't the case in the site because it's brand new, so it doesn't have any major failings or anything. If there were some issues where the site was non-compliant, say it had been built before the UDO came into, then they would have to improve the site to the extent, and this is the legal phrasing, to the extent reasonable and practicable. In this case, however, this site fully complies with the UDO. So.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Okay.
Second.
All right, motion and a second for approval. Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that passes unanimously. We now move to public hearing, let me make sure, number 2. And this is rezoning case 18CZ35 regarding the, well, I'll let you, where's Sarah? There you are, Sarah. It's kind of long, so I'll just let you identify the site.
That works. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I am presenting 2045 Land Use Map Amendment and Rezoning Case 18CZ35, located on 8201, 8217, and portions of 8209 and 8233 Green Level Church Road. And now I'll catch my breath. Just to orient you with the site, we are looking over here in the northwest area of Apex. This is Green Level Church Road here, Green Level West Road here, Roberts Road here, and this is the area that we'll be looking at. And we'll zoom in a little bit. And again, we have Green Level Church Road here. The site is located to the west, Roberts Road here. We have Regency at White Oak down here to the south. We have Ellsworth subdivision currently in review over here to the west. We have some floodplain up here with White Oak Creek. We have the new high school over here to the right, over to the east, and then we have Town of Cary jurisdiction over here as well. So the current and newly adopted 2045 land use map here shows low-density residential represented here with the green, low-density residential office employment represented here with the hatch mark, the light green and light blue. And as you can see, so this is the subject boundary that we're looking at for the rezoning, and within that, there are a few pieces of the land use map that they're requesting to amend. Just unfortunately, we missed this when Advance Apex came through and we looked at this area, so we do recognize that we're bringing a land use map amendment shortly after the adoption, but this is really just cleaning up some boundaries based on what's happening out here. So the proposed land use map amendment is for office employment in this area here, this blue shaded boundary here, and the low density residential office employment here in the hatched mark here. So the current zoning, we have low density conditional zoning here represented in the light yellow here. This is the Ellsworth subdivision. Currently we have rural residential zoning here represented in the dark green. The proposed zoning is a combination. Again, this gray here representing the office and institutional conditional zoning, and this yellow representing the low-density conditional zoning. I just wanted to point out all of these things because as we go through them, where these are is going to be important. So essentially, we're looking at one area here for office and institutional, and then one area here for low-density residential. The overall site is approximately 7.35 acres. It's being brought to you by the applicant ST Investment One, representing other applicants and property owners. They're listed on the application. We've gone over the current and proposed zoning and land use map amendment. As you can see, what they're proposing is consistent with what's currently out here. We do have commercial zoning down here, and we also have commercial zoning up here along Green Level West Road. And just also to let you know that Green Level Church Road here is a major thoroughfare with a 110-foot right-of-way recommendation from Advance Apex. Roberts Road, minor thoroughfare, 80-foot right-of-way recommendation that came out of Advance Apex. The properties here that we're looking at are either vacant and wooded or have a residential home on them, and also heavily wooded. The applicant conducted several neighborhood meetings on November 27th, 2018, January 7th, 2019, and February 21st, 2019. You will find all of those neighborhood meeting reports in your staff report. And just to let you know, I know the applicant has met with the neighbors several times. This application originally came to us with more intense commercial zoning of B1 after meeting with staff, also meeting again with the neighbors. They reduced the rezoning request and have now come to us with the office and institutional zoning request. The proposed zoning conditions list out the uses that are proposed. All of them are consistent with the O&I zoning district, and this is broken down into two parts. So this part here, there are the uses that are proposed, 1 through 28, all consistent with the O&I zoning district. And then I also gave you a new sheet today, sorry. These came from the applicant today. We have some new zoning conditions, so I provided you updated Exhibit B. I will highlight those new zoning conditions next for you.
All right, give us 1 second. Let me just make sure all the council members find it. This is the two sheets stapled that says Exhibit B at the top.
Correct.
Did everybody find that? All right, thanks.
Yep. So you'll find the full listing of conditions there. I'll go over them, a few of them here. These first zoning conditions apply only here to the O&I proposed zoning district. If permitted by DOT in the town of Apex, direct access to Green Level Church Road shall be limited to a right-in, right-out, and left-in, meaning that there would not be a left-out permitted from this future development here. 2 through 7 are architectural standards that we see. Number 8 is new, or rather revised language since it was sent to you in your original staff report. I'll read it in full. Only full cutoff lighting fixtures with external house side shields shall be allowed where non-residential properties area adjacent to are adjacent to residential properties. After 11 p.m., the light level on the property shall be limited to an average of 2.0 foot candles. The Daytime and nighttime settings shall be certified by a lighting engineer at the time of installation. This would be something we would look at when a site plan came to us later for proposed development. Number 9, all buildings shall provide conduit for the future installation of rooftop solar panels. Number 10, at least one building shall have a minimum 10 kilowatt solar power unit installed prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Number 11, the rear buffer adjacent to the residential use shall be planted to a 10-foot type A buffer standard. The type A is an increased opacity. And then numbers 12 through 18, again, are architectural standards. Excuse me, I apologize. Number 12 is an increased stormwater control measure that exceeds our current standards. And number 19, any right-of-way dedication needed for Green Level Church Road in accordance with the recently adopted 2045 Advanced Apex Plan would be provided. As far as the zoning conditions for the LDCZ zoning here, these are identical to zoning case 18CZ09, which was for this residential property back here, which is for the Ellsworth subdivision. So essentially, those proposed conditions 1 through 16 are identical to case 18CZ09. However, there is a new one here, number 17, which I'll read out to you, is that the applicant shall provide a 6 by 6 foot public art easement to the town of Apex at the southwest quadrant of the intersection of Green Level Church Road and Roberts Road. So that will be over here in this area. So that covers all of the zoning conditions. And I just want to let you know, since we have this here, what I've got shown for you is the Ellsworth subdivision, which is what's located behind the proposed rezoning and land use map amendment. So what we're looking at is this area in here is what's been brought to you here. So what this is allowing for is office and institutional non-residential development along the street frontage here, again, up against a major thoroughfare at the intersection of a minor thoroughfare. And with the Ellsworth subdivision and with the applicant here working with the applicant and developer back here, they've been able to work together and work with staff essentially to set this up to have this roadway come in here to provide future access for here. So things that are coming out of both of these are an additional sidewalk here. There's a gap that's being filled essentially from the Ellsworth subdivision, and then also from this project, this future development here, is there'll be that sidewalk connection here. There'll be improvements to the intersection associated with all of the development here in the area. Staff has met with Town of Cary, with Wake County Public School System staff. We've walked the site. This includes planning and traffic staff, and we've walked the site to make recommendations for this development here, other development going on in the area to create a more pedestrian-oriented and safe environment, knowing that we have a school and proposed businesses in the area. I will be happy to answer any questions for you. Staff is recommending approval of the rezoning and the land use map amendment. The applicant is also here should you have any questions.
Quick question from me, if you don't mind.
Sure.
For the intersection there at Roberts, I was thinking specifically of northbound traffic on Green Level Church Road. When you walked that site, did you feel like there was sufficient visibility with the change in elevation and the slight curve to the north and west as you go through?
Well, it's also walking it without sidewalk,
Sure.
so that creates definitely a different environment.
Based on, yeah, and
Sure.
based on how you know that this likely would be modified, I assume that if the visibility now is fair, then it would get actually better with some improvements along that road. But I wanted to see if you could confirm that.
Yes, I think that overall you'll see that there will be improvements both for pedestrians and for vehicular traffic, as all this comes in, as all these improvements are made here. And
Okay.
obviously, any access would have to meet our standards.
Right.
And obviously, any access onto Green Level Church Road is DOT owned and maintained, so they would have to go through that process as well.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Anything from council for staff?
So I heard a little bit about U-turns in the planning board meeting. So the U-turn northbound at that intersection, northbound Green Level. So it's for sure enough room to do a U-turn.
Correct.
Okay.
For clarification, are you going to show us exactly where Councilman Gant's referring?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go through that. But
Uh,
yes, this would be the.
Seems trying.
Exiting the
Yeah,
gas
we'll go
station.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and this does not, there's improvements here, and yes, there would be adequate pavement.
Oh, so this would be using
not
the
a-
left turn lane
To make it-
of northbound in order to make a U-turn to go
U-turn
southbound?
Southbound, yes. So, okay, so it'll be designed with that in mind of a
Yes,
normal amount of room needed for that kind of
yes, and
maneuver.
yes, but there's non-residential development here that will also have a piece of improvements that are coming to this intersection.
Right.
And then there's, the road being extended from this residential development. And then, once the uses are proposed and known here, if it were to meet the threshold for the traffic impact analysis, and then what improvements would be necessary out of that would come at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair comment because there was some concern expressed even from last year as to if that's a right out, how are you going to go south on Green Level West?
Right.
And so the solution here would be you turn right, you get in the left lane, you U-turn.
Right, and most people, when they're purchasing gas, it's a pass-by
Sure.
trip. They're typically not going to go out of their way. They're-
No, but this would
Right.
not be, I'm not saying this is a return, I'm saying they could be passing, right? They could be passing that way. They could come from the north and intend to leave to the south.
Yeah,
making
but
a
they'd have
stop.
they'd have to take a left onto Roberts and then take a right in here. There won't be a left into that.
Right.
So yes, that would be an
But I'm
improvement.
saying if their normal trip, I'm saying if their normal trip was coming from the north and they were heading south, but they want to stop at the gas station on the way,
Yes.
then they would want to stop and have a way to continue to the south.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yes, either by making that U-turn or
Right.
finding another way. Yes.
Right, and the key is I don't want them to find another way through the neighborhood. That's what we want to avoid. Everybody wants to avoid that.
Sure, and I think most people tend to they're going to go in and to a gas station that's a right in, right out on their particular travel path, wherever it is that they're going, provided that, the light's not on and they're running on E and that type of thing.
Sure. Any other questions for staff? All right, thank you, Sarah. This time I'll ask if there's an applicant that wishes to speak before we open the public hearing. And please identify your name and address, and as the applicant, you'll get 9 minutes to present your side.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Isabel Maddox, P.O. Box 946, Raleigh 27602. I'm here tonight on behalf of ST Investments One LLC, as well as Glenn Futrell, and my associate Matthew Carpenter is also here. Sarah did a great job of summarizing this case. We are requesting a rezoning. The vast majority of the rezoning is for an O&I with just a little bit of low-density residential. That will accommodate the road improvements, as I'll discuss in a few minutes. We have met numerous times with staff and with the neighborhood, and I think we have gotten more comfortable with what staff was pushing us to do, and the neighborhood has gotten more comfortable with it as well, to move us from a B1 request to an O&I request. We're also making a small future land use map amendment request. We're generally consistent with the future land use map, but we need to, as Sarah said, sort of make our boundary lines of our zoning case and that zoning, that future land use map designation the same. We believe that this case is reasonable in the public interest for a number of reasons. The most significant benefit to the city of Apex is that this four-legged intersection that I think is desperately needed here. So, which will help the school and will help the numerous neighborhoods that have come online in very recent years, including the Regency neighborhood and the neighborhood that Glen Future was developing to the rear of this property. We believe that the exit, particularly out of the Regency neighborhood, right now, when they come out and want to go left on Green Level Church, is a really bad sight distance. It's a dangerous exit. This will allow them to come up a little bit and go through the new road with Roberts Road extension and come to a signalized intersection and make that left turn with better sight distance and a traffic signal. So it'll be a vast improvement there. Additionally, in terms of public benefits, we think this is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and this zoning district, as requested, is the preferred zoning district for this designation. Also, we believe this will be compatible. We think that the low-intensity office development in this little strip of frontage will be a good transition from the busy Green Level Church Road back to the neighborhood, and will kind of visually, from a visual and noise standpoint, give a buffer and a transition. We don't feel like it's really appropriate to put single-family residential on Green Level Church right there. This zoning will also allow the provision of goods and services in a convenient location for these new neighborhoods that are springing up in Apex, and we also have offered a public art easement at the intersection, which we think will improve the environment. Again, we've worked closely with staff on this. We've come up with numerous conditions that I think will help. As I discussed with Mr. Gant earlier, we have worked on a lighting condition that will limit the light levels going into the neighborhood. We didn't want to shut the lights off totally because we worry that creates an environment where nefarious activities could take place if you're totally dark, but we'll have shielded light fixtures and a limit on the foot candle light trespass that can occur. Again, we think the Roberts Road connection will be great, and we think we have put a condition in to facilitate future solar power, and will dedicate a resource conservation area in the northern portion of the property. So we believe this case is consistent with the 2445 Advanced Apex Plan, and will offer needed goods and services that will serve the families moving into this area. And I then want to call on Anil Singh, who is the developer. He wants to talk to you a little bit about the road improvements and how that came about.
All right, and while he's coming up, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing just so we can make sure everybody's in.
Good evening, Anil Singh, 102 Bangkok Brook Drive, Cary. So we started this case about 8 months ago, and when we came to the town to put our O&I here, there was a concern that we will have traffic issues, and they recommended to extend this Roberts Road all the way into this Ellsworth subdivision to give better access to Regency community because they have issues exiting out on this road because of the hilly and curvy area here. So I met with the developer Glenn, and our first meeting wasn't that good, but after meeting with him a couple of times, we both realized that it is a problem for both of us, so we have to work together. So I'm giving this small piece of land to Glenn, and he is compensating back this L-shaped land to me so we can put this road straight into this subdivision, and this community as well as this upcoming community will have signal intersection to go any direction they want to go. And we will also have a better access to this development here. Since we have a limited access on this bus entrance, even though there is no car entrance or nobody can walk out from here, we worked with Russell and DOT, and there won't be a full access here. It will be right in, right out, and left in. So we looked at all the things we could do from traffic point of view or safety point of view. We are also putting signaled crosswalks, dedicating the right of way for the road and using this area for RCA since it's closer to the floodplain. And I believe this will be the last land in Apex, and after that Cary starts. So with this, I'll just ask Glenn if he wants to talk a little. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. And likewise, Mr. Futrell, if you could give us your name and address before you begin, that'd be great.
Glenn Futrell, 150 Tower View Court, Cary,
All right.
27513. Glad to come up here and address the council and discuss how we got to where we are tonight. My project was ahead of Anil's project, and when he came in and met with staff, as most applicants do, they get some good information from staff, and encouraged him to come and meet with me to see if we could work together to make some improvements that could make it a better situation for both developments, and that's what we did over a period of several months. We've had numerous meetings with the Regency homeowners, especially the homeowners that live on Silverdew Court, have been very involved and engaged with us, and that's worked out really well. But this will be a significant improvement to the intersection because it'll be a four-way intersection at that point. It's going to help Regency. It'll help the flow of traffic in the area, generally speaking, with this four-way intersection. We're also putting in the crosswalks with the signalized controls, which is going to be a real good improvement for the school situation across the street also. Many good things have come out of it, come out of the collaboration that we've had with the staff and working together, one developer with another.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Futrell. Any final thoughts there, Ms. Maddox?
No, I just wanted to say that we feel that we're consistent with the comp plan. We have staff support, and we hope that you will favorably consider our case tonight. Thank you.
Ms. Maddox. At this time, I see one person has asked to comment. Luis Lima. Hi, Mr. Lima. Come on up. Very well, thanks. Good to see you.
My name is Luis Lema. I live in Silverdew Court, 2531, Apex, 27523, the zip code. I've been living for 3 semesters here in Apex. In the first semester, we invited you and 2 councilmen, and they came to our place. At that time, we expressed the concerns about what is about to happen across the street. And with the help of Mrs. Loftin, we were able to start develop some knowledge of how you people crack the nut here in Apex. My background, I was a selectman in the town of North Attleboro for 2 periods. I worked for the U.S. Navy for 28 years. I'm proud of that. In the second semester, we had the meetings with the developers that they just talked about. Very fruitful, very positive. And in the third semester, I had the meeting or the opportunity to talk to Ms. Sarah Rayfield concerning this development. I just want to make you aware, and as the 2 speakers that initiated tonight, we are heavily concerned with the traffic. In the town of North Attleboro, we start counting the traffic. And I mentioned that and I haven't seen that happening yet. What I have seen is that you people have fixed the road in the first semester. And then in the second semester, once again, more holes, more patches. And in the third semester, still new patches. And what it comes to my mind is that that road is not well designed to hold the heavy traffic that is already sustaining and that is going to continue. The 2 speakers for tonight very clearly enunciated how situation is getting a little bit difficult. Already accidents are happening. Not too far from in one of those slides, you could see some white plastic on the ground, so that means that somebody had an accident there, the car. Right at the outside Silver Ducor, well, there was a dead deer, John Deere. I don't know how often you pick the dead animals, but it was at least 48 hours before an action was taken. So that's something that perhaps you might want to think about it. Okay. That's all I want to say. We are supporting the project. It's unfortunate that my other neighbors were not here, especially Mr. Nelson Cooper. No relationship to the governor, by the way. He's a good neighbor, though. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lema.
Okay.
Just a quick note, the road is a NCDOT road, but I'm sure if we have reports of problems with the road or the street, we can make sure the right people at the NCDOT are aware. All right, thank you. At this point, I will close the public hearing, refer the matter back to council for discussion leading to a possible motion.
I would like to say that, you know, as far as stormwater controls, I do appreciate going above and beyond on water quality coming off of the property, so I do appreciate attention to that, going above and beyond.
Sarah, did you say Green Level Church Road was a future major thoroughfare? Is that?
It is currently listed as a major thoroughfare.
And our standards are is it 4 lanes?
4-lane median divided thoroughfare. And so with Advance Apex, then the right-of-way width recommendation for that increased to 110 feet.
And at what point does that, I mean, it's a DOT road, so at what point does that happen, or do we participate in that expansion? How does that, how do we typically?
As far as constructing the
4-lane median.
ultimate, that's when timing is, and funding being determined is my understanding. I don't know if we know where that falls on the funded
Well,
or timing.
so typically, I mean, you can come on up if you want, Russell, but typically that's handled as whatever development is happening next to it, they're responsible for the section, certainly that's right in front of them and oftentimes near them if the TIA impacts that. If there are any missing gaps or holes that seem to not be implemented by being funded through development and they're sitting there, we staring at them, then we can look at funding them ourselves through our town or requesting the NCDOT come in and do that. And that's a juggling or negotiating act. Yeah. But let me give the floor to Russell and see what he'd like to say.
Yeah, widening to 4-lane is not in DOT's 10-year plan currently. You know, typically that happens when traffic congestion gets bad enough for it to be prioritized with the state. And then they come in with a big TIP project, which they're planning right now on NC 55 and US 64 and 1010 Road. As those roads have become congested, they qualify for additional funding. We don't typically request ultimate widening frontage on projects unless it's warranted for traffic. You know, you may see sometimes, especially like Town of Cary, for instance, might get ultimate widening where you see 2 extra lanes of pavement sitting out there and it might sit there for 10 or 15 years. We try to avoid that because it's not really good to have a lot of infrastructure just sitting out there collecting dust, not doing anything. And also, sometimes there's obligations if it's not warranted based on traffic for the town to reimburse for additional widening if it's just based on ultimate widening, but it's not based on traffic needs. So what we'll ask for is recommendations based on a TIA, which would typically show turn lane improvements. Typically would not include wholesale widening of a 2-lane road to a 4-lane divided road. Does that help answer any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
I just had a comment personally that, you know, after hearing some very strong critiques of the development across the way from this neighborhood, I was very sensitive to anything else going in that area, and I think with the Type A buffers and with the lighting considerations and with the road improvements and the art was just something that I thought would be nice in that area too. I think it's a kind of maybe a model rezoning as far as you can have one in this area, in comparison especially to what I heard from the other ones. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, based on the meeting that we attended, first of all, there were a lot of high emotions on the original, rezoning, and I think that it's come a long way. You've obviously listened to the people, and that it shows.
Yeah. All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. And I'd like to say, Mr. Singh and Mr. Futrell, thank you very much for working together with our staff to make sure that the end result is a good one for everyone around. Thank you. All right. So as a reminder now, we are moving to public hearing number 5. And public hearing number 5 is rezoning for Broadstone Station PUD, and Amanda Bunce is presenting.
Okay, this is 19 CZ03, Broadstone Station PUD Amendment, and this property is located generally south of the downtown area near US 1 and 55, but more specifically right across the street from Walmart at the intersection of South Hughes Street and Apex Peakway. The property is just under 20 acres and is currently zoned Plan Unit Development Conditional Zoning, which is also the requested zoning district, as this is just a PUD amendment. The 2045 land use map designates this property as mixed use with medium and high density residential, office employment, and commercial services designation. The surrounding land uses, you have retail across the street, some flex space and very light industrial uses to the west, vacant property to the west here, and then Cambridge Village and then Rex Rehab Hospital to the north. The villages at Broadstone Station Apartments are across the Peakway to the south a bit. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on January 30th, and you have that report. The requested PUD amendment is consistent with the 2045 land use map classification, and the primary purpose of this PUD amendment is to revise the uses for a portion of the PUD and modify the buffers and a parking standard for one use, and I'll go through each of those amendments. I did want to point out the access points are not proposed to change for this site. There would be a full movement access aligning with Cambridge Village on South Hughes Street, full movement aligning with Broadstone Way at Apex Peakway, and then a right-in, right-out on Apex Peakway midway through the retail portion of this property. This, right at the intersection, is to remain designated as retail uses with, and that's about 5.7 acres, and then the 14.2 acres here is proposed to be residential uses. This 1.5 acres of RCA in this location remains unchanged. So the first part of this amendment is the addition of residential uses, which are primarily multifamily related uses. I would like to point out one thing that is unique about this site is that all of the residential uses are required to be affordable, and with the restriction that 100% of the dwelling units developed on the property must meet the requirements of Section 42 of the Internal Revenue Code, and rent shall be set at a price on average that is on average affordable to a household with an annual income that is no greater than 60% of the area median income for the respectively sized household in the Raleigh, North Carolina MSA. And that's determined by HUD. So the justification for the addition of residential uses on this property and for the restriction of it being for affordable housing is that this is the only property within the town of Apex that qualifies for the 9% tax credit offered by the North Carolina Housing Finance Association. The applicant approached staff. They were wanting to develop a product in this area and sought our help to find a location. So our GIS analyst took all the requirements, and they're summarized here that are required to be met, limitations, and did his magic and determined that there is literally one site, and this is it, that qualifies for this 9% tax credit. It's close to retail. It's close to jobs, it's along a good transportation network and along a future transit routes. So all critical factors in choosing a site for affordable housing. The second amendment is a modification in a couple areas to the buffer requirements. And I'm just going to go, well, I thought I had the site plan right there. Give me just one moment. Sorry about that. It's easier to show on a picture. So the buffers remain unchanged along the frontage for the retail portion of the property. There is the addition of a 20-foot type A buffer between the retail and residential phases that will be split between the two phases. The buffer along South Hughes Street is proposed to be reduced to a 20-foot type B buffer in this vicinity. There's a low area along the southern portion of the site, so they want to ensure they have maximum development capability, so the reduction of the buffer there. But they are offering an increase in buffer width in this area to preserve a significant stand of trees that staff specifically asked if it was possible for them to save, and they agreed that that would work with their plan. And then there is a 15-foot type B buffer being proposed along the western property boundary. There's currently no buffer there because it's similar uses. The buffer along the southern property line here is proposed to be increased to a 50-foot type A buffer in this location. Was there a question about the buffers, Mr. Jensen?
I was just trying to look at the street buffer, front buffers, and it says South Hughes Street, and maybe this was before, I don't know, not less than 20 feet type E, not B. That's on page 6.
That may be, that is possible, an error on my part in the staff report. Let me look in the PUD text. You are very much correct in that the PUD text does say a 20-foot type E buffer, so it's the same opacity as along the entire frontage there, just a reduction in the width of 10 feet. My apologies for the error in the staff report.
Okay, so it is going to be, though, a type B, or is it, what's the plan?
What has been proposed by the applicant is a type E.
E.
Yes. The error was my fault in filling in the staff report.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Wait a minute, on the retail?
On
the residential phase.
On the residential, they're talking about a type E. And I'll just let me say, we try to push for type B, at least on residentials, period. And we hear from everybody about clear cutting. Well, if you have buffers, at least, even if it's been clear cut, at least that you bring back a little bit. So it troubles me that it's type E alongside of the residential.
Yes, there's little vegetation on that portion of the site. This is generally where the tree preservation area is, where the larger trees are located. Some of the trees along here are very close, if not within the right-of-way. But the applicant will be up here in a moment. And
So I'm seeing on page 3 a B in that table.
Page 3 in the staff report,
Yes.
that's where the error occurred.
Okay.
Yes.
The correct one
So
is
the PUD text that was submitted by the applicant does state a type E buffer, as Mr. Jensen stated.
Okay.
Can you state the difference between a type B and a type E buffer?
A type B buffer is more opaque. It's not our most opaque buffer. That would be the type A. And then the type E is not the least, despite it being lower in the alphabet, it is not the least opaque buffer, but is typically what you'll find along our retail developments, along all our major corridors.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the third change is a requested reduction in parking for any senior age-restricted apartments to one space per dwelling unit, which is consistent with the parking requirement for congregate living facilities. And with that, planning staff is, well, I just wanted to point out, this is the existing Broadstone Station PUD. The properties in blue are the vacant parcels that are still designated for retail uses. That totals approximately there it is, 14.81 acres, and that is not including the 5.7 that is remaining retail on the subject property. So there's still just under 20 acres left for retail development within this plan unit development. Staff is recommending approval as proposed by the applicant. The planning board heard this rezoning at their March 11th meeting and unanimously recommended approval. The proposed rezoning is consistent with the 2045 land use plan, and the rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest because the amendment will allow a portion of the property to be developed with additional residential uses that will help support the existing and future non-residential uses in the area. Additionally, the PUD requires that any residential use be designated as an affordable housing. The proximity of this site to shopping, including grocery, jobs, and future transit, make it an ideal location for affordable housing, which is in keeping with the goals of Advance Apex. And I just recalled there is an additional zoning condition that was placed before you for your meeting. It's titled 19 CZ03 additional condition at the top, and that is for the addition of a 6 by 6 foot public art easement shall be provided to the town of Apex at or near the southwest quadrant of the intersection of Broadstone Way and Apex Peakway. So that would generally be in this location.
All right. Thank you. Any questions? Any other questions for Amanda?
Amanda, do you know off the top of your head what page the affordable housing requirements and credits are on in your staff report?
It would be on page 2. There is an asterisk underneath the residential uses that lists the requirements for affordable, the restrictions for affordable housing. And I can put it on the screen as well.
Any other questions for Amanda or for staff? Okay, not hearing any. Thank you, Amanda. I'll at this time ask if there's an applicant from KRG Peakway at 55 that wishes to speak. And as you come up, please identify your name and address for the record, and then we'll give the applicant 9 minutes as per usual.
Thank you for the reminder.
Sure. Great. Thanks. One other page. Let's see. Bum, 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 bum.
Could you put it into presentation mode?
I can't.
Or a staff.
Thank you.
A staff could. Is this a?
It's a PDF.
Yeah, you can still put it in full screen. There you go.
It takes me a moment.
There you go.
Great. Hi, I'm Greg Warren, and I'm president of DHIC, and we're really happy to be here with you tonight. Thank you, Mayor and members of council. We are very excited about this development, and I want to just take a brief moment to tell you a little bit about DHIC.
I apologize. Can you repeat your name and address?
Greg Warren, 113 South Wilmington Street in Raleigh.
Thank you.
With me tonight is Tim Fisher, who's a project manager with DHIC, as well as Gavin Thomas with Kite Realty, representing the property owners, John Wood from Klein Design, landscape architect, and Chris Bostick of Kimley Horn, in case I need help in any questions that you may have. DHIC is a nonprofit organization founded in 1974. We're governed by a 15-member board of directors, and we're really proud of our track record that we've developed over the years. We have one of our really important points in our work is really providing quality design and knowing that we want to be in every neighborhood in the community. We've built in Wakefield Plantation. Some of you may be familiar with our Highland Village development over in Cary, and we've received numerous awards for the quality of our work. I should note to you that we are owners of Beech Ridge Apartments on Upchurch Road in Apex here. We completed that project in 2000, and we've maintained it in great condition over the years and hope to reinvest in that as well in the coming years. Our mission at DHIC is to strengthen neighborhoods and families by offering expanded home ownership opportunities. We have a 6-member staff that provides home ownership counseling, And last year, we assisted over 300 families buy their first homes. We also provide quality, affordable rental housing for families, seniors, and other individuals with low incomes. And then finally, we have an interest in enhancing the economic well-being of our residents and in low-wealth neighborhoods as well. We have 23 multifamily communities that we've developed, 13 senior communities. The family communities are serving just working families. Seniors communities are age restricted, serving those either 55 or 62 years of age or older. And then we also have 2 supportive housing communities that we've developed for those coming out of the recovery programs, the shelters, and the like. As I mentioned, we own Beach Ridge Apartments, 72 units on Upchurch Road. The average income there is about $27,000 a year. Generally, the families that we're serving in our apartment communities and are those who are working in kind of our workforce, relatively low-wage positions that fuel a lot of our growth here, teachers' aides, working for example, in hospitals, working in the back rooms of banks, working in the public sector and streets, water, sewer, and that sort of thing. We find that there's a tremendous demand for this type of housing. We recently opened up some properties in Raleigh, and we had a waiting list extending for many hours as people tried to apply for our housing. We're serving over 3,400 people in our communities right now. Just to give you some examples of the properties that we developed, this is on Glenwood Avenue, Water Garden Village and Park, right before you come to the CarMax, before you get to our Angus Barn. And this is both a seniors community and a family apartment community developed in 2 different phases. And that's exactly what we're looking to do here at Broadstone. The first phase being the family apartment community. Another example is Pennington Grove and Garner, that we just completed that. That's 83 seniors rental communities, rental apartments for lower income seniors. Greenfield Place and Commons in Chapel Hill is just completed, almost completed. We recently received Triangle Business Journal's Best Apartment Development in the region for Greenfield Commons. We had a great partnership with the town of Chapel Hill. That partnership was evidenced by the fact that they not only provided the land for us that they own for free, but they also did all the entitlement work. And that was really a successful partnership in a very high barrier to entry community. Most people don't think of Chapel Hill as a place where you see affordable housing. So right now we're completing Washington Terrace close to St. Augustine's University in downtown Raleigh. 162 family apartments and 72 senior apartments on that site, and we have about another 200 units that we're going to be developing there. So, I think that we have a great track record. I think we have had just a wonderful experience with the town planning staff. As Amanda mentioned, this is really the only site that qualifies for low-income housing tax credits. And just to give you a sense of the importance of what those low-income housing tax credits mean in terms of affordable rental housing, is that we're projecting that this development, the first phase of this development, will cost roughly $13 million. Of that, we will raise better than $8 million from equity from corporate investors who buy the tax credits from us. So you can see that better than half of our costs are going to be covered by that tax credit. Tax credits are allocated by the State Housing Finance Agency. It's a very competitive process. You got to go through a very narrow doggy door to get funded. And we've been really successful at doing that. But we think we've at least found a site that threads that needle in Apex. So we're looking forward to working with the town, answering any questions you may have about our intentions, our history, our track record. But we are just happy to be here tonight and hope that you find that this project and rezoning meets some of your needs. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Warren?
Well, I really like the project, frankly. I think it's something that we desperately need. And what you folks are doing is really a great thing. The question I had is back to the little buffer business along North Hughes Streit. we've heard tonight from people that are looking for more trees, more gentle views from the streets. I was hoping that you could up that buffer from E-buffer, which is kind of telephone poles 50 feet apart, to, not exactly, but that's how I feel about it, to something that's more gentle.
Yeah, and I must admit that I'm not probably as deep into that as much as, it's my understanding that that was the recommended buffer by staff under the current zoning ordinance, and I'd be happy to look at that. I'd be curious to know whether or not Cambridge Village has a buffer that exceeds the E-buffer that we're proposing right now. Just sort of looking at that, I don't see a deep amount of landscaping that's being provided by Cambridge Village right now.
They were put in before we were looking much stronger
Okay.
at the
Right.
buffer. So
Fair enough.
it's kind of a
Fair
story
enough.
there.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Warren?
No questions, just comments. I'm loving what you're doing.
Thank you.
And greatly appreciate that, and I'm glad that you are requesting of Apex, that a community be built here. And, I don't have any concerns about this. I think it's a great project.
All right. I do have a public hearing to open, so maybe we'll go ahead to that if that's all right with staff. I mean, council.
What is that?
Sorry. Okay.
Go to public hearing now?
Go to the public hearing.
Okay.
And then I just want to see if there's any other questions for Mr. Warren while he's standing there.
I have no questions. I can just do my comments.
All right. Very good.
I do
Thank
have
you.
a question for Mr. Thomas of Kite Realty. If I can do that at the public hearing,
Mr. Thomas?
if he's here.
Oh, as the applicant? Yeah, that's right, sir. But you'll need to come up and give us your name. But this is related to the applicant, so
Yeah.
do you have a real estate question? Is that what you're?
I had requested via email that on the commercial side that they put in 40
okay, all right.
40 kilowatts
So-
solar,
okay.
when that comes up.
Okay,
But I
Mr.
never
Thomas?
Yes.
Could you give us your name and address?
My name's Gavin Thomas. I'm with Kite Realty Group. We're the original property developer out of Broadstone.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jensen, you have the floor.
I don't know whether you got my email or not. I didn't get a response from you, but I had requested that in the commercial sector, which will be built later, obviously, that you commit to 40 kilowatts of solar photovoltaics, which is a kind of a minimal size system for that type of a
Right.
development.
We did talk a little bit about the solar opportunities out there, and in our experience, we have done solar panels on our shopping centers, but they're typically on a larger format center. Like the Walmart would be an ideal candidate for that because you have a lot of roof to put the panels on. The actual smaller buildings, which will probably end up being on that commercial parcel that you're referring to, it's a lot more challenging because we have a lot more infrastructure on the roof and things like that. So it was a hard question to answer without knowing what the ultimate use is going to be there. So I hesitate to commit to that because I just don't know what the ultimate use is going to be there. I mean, it could range from general retail, it could be a hotel, it could be a variety of different things. So I'd like to defer to maybe talking about it afterwards, and once we have a little bit better idea of what the ultimate use is going to be on that site.
Site plan, is what you're saying, I guess?
Yeah, we carved it out just knowing that we'd like to, continue to support. I mean, obviously, the original plan out at Broadstone was a much larger retail center. And with market conditions and, finding a good partner in DHIC, we realized that this is a great opportunity to put affordable housing in the community. And the hope is that the benefit of having additional housing out there will drive more demand for the residential. I mean, it's been 15 years since we've had that property, and there just hasn't been as much activity that I think that anybody hoped for out there. So obviously more rooftops, more people. We're hoping to bring more investment into that corridor on the Peakway with restaurants and things. But today, sitting here, I just don't know what that is. So it's hard to know how that would fit into the economics of whatever that ultimate use would be.
And that's why I asked for 40 kilowatts and not 400 kilowatts.
Yeah.
Because I recognize the objective is to get the ball rolling at that time.
Right.
So I still hope that you can commit to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all, like I said, in other centers we have done it. I just haven't seen it on a small scale for what we would see on this particular parcel. Like we've done it on larger centers where there's been like a Target or a Walmart, and there's enough to farm it there where the programs that are out there for solar and for those types of things make more sense on that scale. It's hard to make a commitment to that on this particular site when we don't know ultimately what's going to be there. We know it's not going to be a large format retailer. It's most likely going to be a restaurant or small scale office or flex. So again, without knowing what the ultimate use is in the time frame that had to kind of look at it, it was hard to make a commitment tonight.
I'll tell you, it's kind of disappointing because a group came up just earlier tonight and on a smaller, very small scale, committed to 10 kilowatts and on a daycare center.
Right. The use was known. That's I guess where I'm kind of coming from.
All right. I'm disappointed. I'll tell you, I'm disappointed.
But we're happy to explore it. I think, and I talked to Greg about this earlier this evening, that it might be something to talk about to Walmart and see if they would have an interest, because I have seen them do it in other parts of the country. And I think if you want to talk about potential there, that might be something that we can introduce as a concept. If you have some programs and information, we can get them engaged and see if they would look at something like that for their rooftop.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
You're welcome. Thanks.
All right. If there's no objection, I'll open the public hearing. All right. At this time, I'll open the public hearing, and John Buck, you're up first, and Beth Bordeaux will follow.
Good evening, members of the Town Council. My name is John Buck. I live at 105 Lindenberry Drive here in Apex. I have attended the planning board meeting to hear about this affordable housing effort. The recommendation is positive. The organization that is submitting this is well-known, has worked for many years in the Triangle. We need affordable housing. I am here to appeal for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buck. And Beth Bordeaux. Thanks, man.
Thank you. I'm Beth Bordeaux. I live at, remember where I live, 1044 Branch Line Lane here in Apex, and I'm the Executive Director of Western Wake Crisis Ministry. I'm also here to ask for your support for this effort. I spoke with you last month, and I've spoken with each of you individually about the issues around affordable housing in our community and our desperate need for affordable housing, more affordable housing here. A key factor in reducing vulnerabilities for families and for children and for seniors is to have safe and affordable housing. And we have a lot to be proud of in our town. But in order to make this a town where everyone who works and serves here can live here, we've got to have places that they can afford to live here. At Western Wake, we are seeing between 1 and 12 people, between 1 and 12 households per day who are struggling with meeting their monthly bills. And these are folks that are seeking financial assistance. About 80% of those folks are from the Apex area. 1 to 4 folks or households are coming to us who are actually in risk of losing their housing. And so this is just a critical need, and I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I just want to thank you very much for your support.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Bordeaux. That concludes our public hearing for the matter, so I'll refer this to council for possible motion. I think Council Member Dozier has expressed an interest in beginning, so I'll happily turn the floor over.
So first I'm going to make a motion to approve.
All right, there we go. All right.
And then I want to comment. So when I began my anti-poverty work over 22 years ago, I became aware of Mr. Warren's work in DHIC. They don't just provide housing for people, but they also connect them to resources, which is how I met him, trying to make sure that people who had housing also had insurance. Because a lot of the people who are doing this kind of work lack insurance, even they have a job. And so I'm excited that this project is here. One of the things that I wanted to say is that, we've talked a lot about live, work, play, engage, and so this actually is a property where hopefully people will actually be able to live and work and maybe even walk to work. That's just exciting for me. I'd also say that that it's a variety of people. It could be first-time home, it could be a first-time person getting their first housing, or it could be an older adult. So in that way, it could be diverse related to age. So that's exciting to me too. I'm aware of the Housing Finance Agency and the great work that they do. So the last thing I do want to say is when I read the packet and there was a comment, a question from a participant that troubled me some, and the question was, it questioned the quality of the tenants the potential quality of the tenants who might be in this housing. And so I hope that we can encourage each other that just because someone is earns a low income and they need an affordable housing, we shouldn't question their potential quality, because we don't question it on anything else that we do here related to housing. So just want to raise that, and hopefully we can put our arms around people in the community who serve us every day and just don't earn a living to be able to afford a variety of housing products that are in this great town. So thank you.
All right. Any other thoughts? We have a motion and a second, so discussion on the motion. All right. I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. I'd like to thank everybody for working together on this. It's great to see multiple parties coming together to try to find something that can work, especially in the cases where it's not clear that any one party would have made it happen otherwise. So that's always an encouraging thing. And, many hands make light work, my grandmother always said.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Warren.
All right, thank you all. Thank you both. Takes us to public hearing number 6. This is a question of annexation, and I'll scratch Diane Ken's name, and we'll turn this over to Amanda Bunce.
Okay, this is annexation 655, located just south of 64 along North Salem Street in this location. This is the property here, and it's approximately 18 acres. And staff is recommending approval. This annexation is required because on a portion of this site, there is a construction plan for a site plan that is waiting approval. They need water and sewer services.
All right, questions for Amanda? All right, not hearing any, I'll open the public hearing. No one has signed up, so I'll close the public hearing and refer the matter to council for possible motion.
What is this zoned again? I'm sorry.
The zoning of this parcel is light industrial. It's had that zoning for very many years.
That doesn't include car lots, does it? I think
That use is permitted in the light industrial district.
it is.
It is.
So basically, they're going to put another Crossroads Ford piece on this.
We have the site plan that is awaiting approval is Crossroads Truck Center, which is located on this portion of the parcel, not the entire site. So that is the use that would be located there.
Is there any further discussion or comments or questions?
I have a question of our town attorney. Are we obligated to annex this property or not?
Well, an annexation would be a legislative decision.
Okay, so we're not.
If you'd like some more detail, we should go into closed session.
I think that might be a good idea.
Is there a motion to go into closed session?
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, we're adjourned for closed session temporarily. We shall return.